Welcome to Higher Impact, where we are inspiring you to reach higher and dream bigger. I'm Teresa Hairston, and we've got an exciting and uplifting show for you tonight. The Bible tells us that we are secure in the hands of God. In John 10:28, Jesus said, "I give them eternal life, and they shall never perish, neither shall anyone snatch them out of my hand." Bishop Jackie McCullough encourages, if you fall, you're going to get back up. If you mess up, God's going to fix you up. God brought you out, and you don't have to go back in. Tonight, we want you to be encouraged that no matter what challenges you may be facing, you are secure in the hands of God. My guests tonight include three dynamic worshipers who happen to be extremely gifted artists. Ben Tankard is one of the most successful and multifaceted people you'll ever meet. Ben had hoop dreams. That's right, he was a budding professional basketball player and was on his way to the NBA, but never played due to injury. He turned to music and became one of the best-selling gospel jazz musicians in the industry. These days, he's wearing several hats. He's a pastor, award-winning musical artist and producer, motivational speaker, author, a certified aircraft pilot and aircraft owner, as well as a reality TV star on Bravo's Thicker Than Water, The Tankards. And now, he's got an exciting new venture he's announcing right here on Higher Impact. We'll also spend some time with the beautiful and talented Isabel Davis. Isabel consistently shares her musical gift with her local church at All Nations Worship Assembly in New Orleans, where she leads worship, but she also has made her mark on the national music scene. And speaking of making a mark, my friend J.J. Hairston has produced music that has become indispensable to houses of worship across the world. J.J. and his group, Youthful Praise, are responsible for hit songs such as Incredible God, You Deserve It, Miracle Worker, and No Reason to Fear, and more. He and his wife, Trina, now serve as pastors, and he has an exciting new musical project called Believe Again. My next guest is building a new legacy in praise and worship. He is here, and he's my son, but not really. He is J.J. Hairston. Welcome to Higher Impact.
Thank you, Mama. We love to, everywhere I go, they say, your mother is doing amazing work. I said, yes, she is, isn't she?
And they asked me, well, how's your son? I said, he's great. And JJ's probably doing pretty good too. No, we're not like mother and son, right? But we connected.
Absolutely.
We are connected. We family.
Absolutely.
And I told you, don't act up, because they're going to blame me.
They're going to call her and say, he acting up on these streets.
Right. Because some artists just, they have that big, explosion.
Right.
And it's like, hey, but you have just gone, why?
Well, I honestly can say we've never tried to be who we weren't. But we weren't afraid to try to expand, but while still staying true to who we were. And we know that our music is for the church. And the church is the one organism that will never die as long as there are believers. So as long as there are people who go to church, they're going to be people who need our music. And we've been continuous in releasing music that they can sing in the local church.
So let's roll it back to those 35 kids that were a church choir that you started with. And you said, well, let's do a record. How did all of that take place?
So in 2001, we released our first project. And the reason we did it was not because we felt like we were going to be this choir that was big. We were singing a song called God is an Awesome God that the late Pastor Sean Brown wrote. And people were singing it, colleges and churches were singing it and said, we need to be able to let people know it's our song. So we recorded it just for that. And we wanted to have a CD to sell in the back of the church when we sang. That was literally the extent of what we saw. But since then, people started to receive our music all over the country. So we started to travel more. And now here we are, 21 years later, since that time, still releasing music. We're on our 11th record, and God's just doing great things for us.
Oh my goodness, yes. And so you've gone from being, is it Bridgeport?
Yes.
No. Okay, Bridgeport, Connecticut.
Yeah.
And now you're in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
11 records later.
Yeah.
And through ministry changes and transitions, and now you are pastor J.J. Hairston. Wow.
Yeah, so that part.
That part.
People always say I was always running from it. But I can honestly say I didn't feel like I was capable of doing it. It was always an insecurity I felt. Like, you know, I had the office of being a pastor in such high regard, and it was too high for me to meet. Then when I realized it's not really about me, it's about my submission, and God will do what he wanted to do through me. Every great man in the Bible that we know of was nervous about doing what they were called to do.
Right.
And those who are really like ready for it are usually the people that you don't want in that position anyway. So we're grateful that my wife and I, Trina Hairston, we pastor All Nations DC together, and God is doing something great in Washington DC.
Yeah. So now in ministry with your wife, I know that you've done a book together.
Yeah.
She's been like your manager, your roadie, your ride or die, everything.
Yeah.
And you know, and it really is a great look, your relationship.
Praise God.
How do you stay strong as a young man, married, you got kids, and how do you manage and balance?
So balance is easy because no matter what's happening, Thursday night, I gotta take the garbage out. So I never get the opportunity to really celebrate myself, like I'm doing this, I'm doing that, because at the end of the day, none of that matters when it's time to get that garbage to the front of the house. And I always tell people that is because you never wanna feel like you have this great responsibility that all of a sudden overshadows your first responsibility, which is to take care of your home. So there's no balance for me, it's prioritization. My first priority is my relationship with God. My second priority is my relationship with my family. And then everything else after that falls in place.
Wow. And now talk about the book a little bit that you guys authored.
A Miracle Marriage. So the book A Miracle Marriage was our honest conversation about some of the things we went through as a couple. We're very transparent in the fact that we were separated for a few years.
Well, how many years have you been married?
We've been married, so my son is 28 years.
I'm supposed to say that quickly.
I know. I always go based on my son's age. So he
Okay.
turned 26, so we'll be married 28 years.
Okay.
And in that 28 years, I would love to say it was all a honeymoon, but it wasn't. There was a period of time when we were separated. I mean, really on the way to divorce. Like, we had paperwork signed and everything.
Wow.
And then I was at a women's conference. Don't ask me why I was at a women's conference. They had me lead worship at a women's conference. And Dr. Cheryl Brady was preaching. And she started preaching about Noah, how he was in the boat and everything was rocky. And then there was a season where they settled the boat. And the Bible says, and God remembered Noah. So in that conversation, she said, there's going to be a settling that happens in your life. And then God's going to remember you. And even all the turmoil you had to go through.
Wow.
In that moment, I said, it's time for me to get my family together. I don't know how that translated to that, but it did. And since that day, our lives changed. So we went from being in divorce court to being marriage counselors.
Wow.
So we say that's a miracle.
That is God just shifting.
So we say our marriage is a miracle.
Goodness.
But what I always say is there are certain steps you have to take to be a part of your miracle.
Sure.
So the book is talking about the steps we took to get our marriage back together.
And the name of it again?
A Miracle Marriage.
A Miracle Marriage. You got to get that book.
Yeah.
And now a new project is coming out soon.
Yes.
Talk about that.
I'm so excited about this new project. A lot of people said, do you have time to make music now? Because pastoring, nobody told me it's not a full-time job, it's an overtime job. So with all that we're doing, I still had this longing to release music again.
Yeah.
So earlier this year, we recorded a project and it's called Believe Again.
Wow.
Because I think the biggest crisis in the church is not technology. The major crisis we're facing in the church right now is we have people who go to church but don't believe.
Wow.
They serve, they teach, but they really don't believe it. They're just doing it out of the formality or even because it's their occupation at this point. And my encouragement is to not just look at what you do as an assignment, but look at it as an opportunity to teach what you believe. But if you don't believe, you have nothing to share.
So when you say they don't believe, are you saying they don't believe in church or
They don't believe in the
God?
Bible. They don't believe in God. I know people, I'm not going to say who, but I know a few people right now who have a problem with what the Bible says.
Wow.
And to be honest, there are some things that we have to understand that are different now than they were at the time that the Bible was written. So of course there will be some disparages that happen, but not because the Bible is not true. It was just depicting of the time that happened. So now we have the opportunity to share what God meant now for what was happening in that season then. And for me, I think this is all an opportunity for us to refresh our focus and to be able to learn what God's intent instead of what we think God's intent is, which is now we think it's all about profitability, all about fairness. Sometimes it's not going to be fair, but God is not. It's not about being fair. It's about being just. We serve a just God. He's a faithful God, and I'm just excited about the opportunity to reignite people's faith, and that's what this record is about.
Praise and worship is something that we can't live without in gospel music. And this young lady has been doing worship in so many scenarios and is blessing us on the airwaves. Welcome, Isabel Davis.
Thank you so much for having me, Teresa. I'm honored to be here.
It is my pleasure. You know what? You have been singing for years and years and years. Tell me, how did you grew up in San Antonio, right?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I'm born and raised San Antonio, Texas, and I come from a very musical family. My father was the first psalmist of this little storefront church, Pentecostal Apostolic storefront church, which of course transitioned into a non-denominational ministry. But back home, you know, Dad and Mom were heavily involved in ministry. And as you hear often, my drug problem started. You know, they drugged me to church Wednesdays and Thursdays and Sundays and Saturdays, all night prayer meeting, you know, the camp meetings. It was all of that, you know, but it was such a beautiful foundation for me because it's just being, you know, a child of parents who love to serve, you know, in church, in local church. It was a big part of who I am today. You know, my parents made sure we were always in church, but always serving, you know.
Did you ever think, I don't want to go to church anymore, I just want to go do my own thing?
You know,
was there ever a time in your life?
There was never a time where I was like, I don't want to go to church. There were times where I wanted to, you know, participate in school things. Like, you know, but our parents were old school, so it was like every time the church doors are open, you're there. So, you know, I never felt like I didn't want to be in church, but there were times where I did want to incorporate some of those other things, you know, that our friends were getting to do, like just simple things, dance, cosmetology, you know, going on field trips and different things like that. And it was because church was always the priority, you know, we missed out on some of those things. So I don't regret it because I feel like God used all of those seasons to lead up to now. So I'm grateful. I'll say that.
Wow. So you started recording when?
Yeah. So, okay, first demos and stuff like that around the age of 15, 16, right? But, you know, getting to lead worship for local church was always kind of the main thing. And it was never in my mind, I want to be the next big gospel artist. My heart and passion was always seeing the people of God set free and healed, and in this moment of corporate worship and in these moments of, you know, just seeing the presence of God fall in a room, right? So that's kind of where that started. And so for me, it was about, I mean, I was happy leading for local church, like because you're leading for your family and your friends, and it's, you know, it's a safe space, right? It's familiar. And the tug started happening where he would send a pastor or a prophet through the church, and they'd go, this is going to be global. It's bigger than this. And as a kid, you're like, okay, I don't know what that means. What does that look like? How do you go from serving local church to the big stage? Well, obviously God had it in the plan. And so, you know, just doing that for years and years, I was so happy with that, you know. And I want to make sure I answer your question.
That's okay.
So tell me again what you're asking.
I'm asking you, how did you get into the industry?
Okay, so what happens is I'm leading worship for local church back in San Antonio. And around 2010, my husband and I transitioned to New Orleans, right? We came under the tremendous covering of Bishop Lester Love and Pastor Fran, which was the church I served in for 12 years before Love Alive. And so it was my pastor at that time, Bishop, he heard a word from the Lord, and he was the one that gave me the directive that it was time to start recording. It was time to start, you know, getting in the studio and creating the songs of heaven. And which to me was amazing, because I came from a church where, you know, you're the worship leader here, and that's kind of where you stay, you know? And so to hear our pastor be so selfless in that and go, you know, I know you're our worship leader.
Push you out of the net.
Right. Exactly. It was beautiful and equally terrifying, because it's like, you're used to this, you know this, but when you start to do it, you know, from church to church, platform to platform, that's a different thing, you know? So, you know, at that time, in that season, I had one baby on the hip, another on the way. And I'm like, how do you get in the studio and record with this big belly? You're trying to sing, you know? It was like, I just was like, are you sure, God, this is the timing? But I knew, because it was becoming a thing of, I'm hearing it more often, like, okay. And in my heart, I knew this was God's design. This was my God-given destiny. And so we said yes to God. My husband, who was acting as manager at the time, you know, started learning everything he could, you know, about the industry. And, you know, we got in the studio, started recording and writing, and The Call was the first song that we decided to record, you know, as we were praying and just asking God, what do those songs look like for the church? What is what do your people need to hear, and what do you want to hear, Lord, you know? And so The Call happened, and
then we took off.
We never, I mean, just watching God move in that was amazing. A stellar award and all of the things. And so just looking back.
So that was back in 2017?
That was back in 2017 when we started recording, 2016, 2017. Actually, 2015 was where that started. And then, of course, the song, The Call, happened around 2017. So it's been.
So now you're on like your third project.
So actually, this is the second project. Because The Call was the first, right? The freshman album. And then now we're getting ready to release the next project.
Tell me about that one.
I'm super excited about this one because one of the things that I love and I have done for years, as we talked about, is leading praise and worship in local church and in corporate settings, which is my passion. Because there's nothing like the presence. Oh my God, there's nothing like the presence of God. And so, you know, I'm just so grateful because, you know, getting to do that, I feel like was literally training ground for this season, right? And so looking back at The Call, looking forward and saying, man, God, you gave me the opportunity to show the people of God what it looks like if they're in an actual setting with me leading praise and worship, where the first project was primarily studio work, right? We had a couple of those, you know, where we got to go live, like Wide as the Sky, which was a single, Bless the Lord live. But Jesus, We Love You, The Call, you know, those were mostly like the studio type work. And so for me, this was exciting because this baby here, I got to sit down and write with Persia Hilliard, collab with Delaney Land Music and Todd Delaney. Like my sister got to feature, you know, like it's just full of the goods, you know? And because I feel like we've been through so much these last 2 years. The single is my first, you know, up-tempo song that I get to introduce at radio, which is super excited. I Will Rejoice. Yes, and this song, Persia and I wrote with the same heart and mind of what are the songs that people abroad in different churches can quickly engage in, and it doesn't take them a whole song to try to learn the song, but they could quickly engage in the corporate encounter. And that's the thing about praise and worship. It is.
Because you want people to get in the presence, and the music should not be in the way of the presence.
You said it.
So
it
that's
should be singable. You know, the toddler can sing it, and the 80-year-old can sing. You know, these are the songs that we can.
Multi-generational, multi-ethnic. All of that.
Yeah, all of that. All of those things, and that's kind of the passion in the heart that she and I shared, you know, while getting to create this project. And so we're so excited.
When does it come out?
So October is the release of the full project.
This young man is a legend in the industry in so many ways, has done amazing things. Welcome to Higher Impact, Ben Tankard.
Oh, Sister Teresa, you are so kind. You're so kind.
Sister Teresa, yeah, we go back that far, right?
Yes,
like brothers and sisters, man. You know what? You are one of the big inspirations for me in Gospel Today, well, even Score Magazine, Gospel Today, Gospel Industry. You've just been through the whole season of my life.
We've been joined at the hip. You know, when I came to Nashville, you were one of the few ones that embraced me with this thing called gospel jazz, which some people thought was a contradiction in terms. But you saw it as, you know, gospel is the passenger, but jazz is the vehicle. And so you helped me from the start, put me on the front of your magazine. It was awesome.
Well, you know, you were doing some great things. You were innovative and you were creative. And, you know, a lot of times we see that and we kill the spark because it doesn't fit the tradition of what we've known. So as a gospel jazz and instrumentalist, where gospel music has always been about the singers, and if you're not singing, well, go take a seat. So, but you have kind of made the pathway, the trail, So how has that been?
It has been a wonderful experience. I'm glad God used me. I feel like David sometimes, somebody talented with some issues. I had a couple divorces along the way. I had bankruptcy along the way. But now and but God. So,
now and but God.
Yes, sir.
That's a message
That's
right
a book
there.
right there.
Right.
And so I'm sitting here with you and Stellar Award number 20.
Wow.
Nominated for Best Instrumental. And then we're in 2022, and my NBA days faded, and I got into music after being a dog catcher for a couple years. and I got my start in music, and I was nominated as Best New Artist, Stellar Awards, 1989. And you were there when we sat around the table with Don Jackson and other people, and I was saying, you guys, please make some room for instrumental in what you're doing, because everybody needs a musician. You take the music out, it's an all a cappella industry.
Right.
And so I'm glad I was one of the ones God used to bring this genre to the forefront.
Well, not only did you do it for instrumental music, but a lot of people don't know it was through your hands that Yolanda Adams really kind of came to prominence in the gospel industry.
I like to brag and say I discovered Yolanda Adams, but really Yolanda Adams discovered me as a producer. Because she said yes as a third grade school teacher when I contacted her and I said, Yolanda, would you like to come in the studio and cut a record? And she said yes. If she wouldn't have said yes, I would have still been sitting there playing the piano with nobody to sing on top of it.
Wow.
But she allowed me to merge my gift with hers, and great things happened. We worked on 40 songs together, 4 records. You know the hits, The Battle is the Lord's, what is it, Through the Storm, Let Us Worship. And so I'm just so honored my sister allowed me to be part of her history.
Amazing. And so then you went on and you now have a reality show.
Thicker Than Water, The Tankards, season 4. I mean, if you wanted to be entertained, just go to thetankards.com and just watch My Wacky Family.
Yeah. So how has it been just evolving through, because now are you still pastoring?
Still pastoring, still doing the reality TV, still flying airplanes. I'm still a pilot, and so I'm just trying to stay relevant and do all God's called me to do. I still feel like I'm 28 years old. I'm just getting started, girl.
Okay.
And you look 28, so we must be drinking the right water,
right,
girl.
That's what we're doing. So, the whole evolution in the industry, how have you seen the industry change? And what do you wish would not have changed or should change even more?
The 2 things that I have seen is that you cannot be married to a method. You cannot just listen to radio and try to mimic what somebody else is doing. Okay. I always say this. Just be yourself, because everybody else is already taken. The second thing, especially for new artists, is you don't need a big record label to be who you are.
Okay.
Now, it's almost going back to the days when we were kids, not giving away our age, but you remember with the 45s?
Oh my goodness.
And it's a song on this side and a song on this side, and it was what, 99 cents or 50 cents for 2 songs? Well, now you don't have to have a whole 10 songs to get going, to do what God called you to do. If you believe God called you to do this, man, get some musicians together, get into the garage, get that thing done, do 1 song, and put it on iTunes. And because even if you did 10 songs, people are going to sift through those 10 songs and pick out the one they like the best.
That's true.
Anyway.
Right.
And
so you might as well pick it for them.
Thank you. Thank you. So those 2 things, the industry, just be yourself, and then don't worry about a big record label. People don't care if you're with Universal, NBC, or BBC.
Okay.
Just do what God called you to do, and you will see.
And speaking of doing it yourself, now you've got a television network.
Yeah, I'm just getting ready to launch what we call Smooth Life TV. Smooth Life Network.
Smooth Life Network.
Yeah.
And what's that going to be?
It's just a television version of all things Tankard.
Okay.
Music, our ministry from our church, reality show, new artists, Christian, not Christian, but wholesome movies. Anything that's giving you a smoother life is going to be on my channel. And it's an Apple TV channel, Roku, that sort of thing, digital. Everything is in your hand right now, so you don't have to be in front of a TV. So this is a TV network. You don't have to be in front of the TV to see this network. You just get the cell phone on. Thank God for technology.
Yes, and you have used it in all the ways it could be used.
Yes, ma'am.
So the whole record thing, you've got a new project coming out.
It's called Shine.
Shine.
And you know me, I like to repossess what was God's from the get-go.
Okay.
I don't believe there's anything such as secular music. There's
Okay.
secular lyrics, but the music belongs to God.
Well, you know what? When we go back to our roots, and our roots really are not from gospel music in slavery, but in Africa, then there was no separation.
Right.
Life was just life, and music was an accompaniment to all aspects of life.
It was a soundtrack for life.
Exactly. And so now we are, as you say, repossessing and repositioning our mindset so that we understand that it all works together. And when we understand that, then there's no problem with gospel, jazz,
Right.
or anything
It's
else.
conversation to a melody.
Yeah.
Because look at it. Now, you remember when Job had a bad week. He lost his cows, lost his animals, lost his wife, barns burnt down, and he started complaining.
That's a bad week.
Yes, yeah. Job was saying, "Cursed be the day that I was born. Cursed be the day that the sun came up. Cursed be
Do you
the
think
day."
Job had COVID?
Yeah.
Okay.
Cursed be the day that my dad got my mama's phone number.
Okay.
He was cursing
He was
everything.
there.
And then God said, in a whirlwind, he said, "Listen, Job, where were you when I framed the foundations
Yes.
of the universe?"
Yes.
Get this. As the morning stars sang.
Yeah.
That let me know that he made the universe to a soundtrack.
Yeah.
So music wasn't invented in the radio station, secular or gospel.
Right.
Music came from heaven.
Yeah.
And so I repossessed stuff. Like on this New Shine record, I repossessed the song that Marvin Gaye wrote called Just Like Music.
Yeah.
But I repossessed it from him because he got it from heaven. And so I just re-triggered it and put my stank on it. And it went #1 on the Billboard chart
I love
for
it.
jazz. How?
Yeah.
Preacher.
Thank you for joining me tonight. I sincerely appreciate the privilege of your time, and I hope you've been encouraged to keep moving forward in God's power and purpose for your life. Please contact me on social media at Dr. T. Hairston on my website at teresahairston.com.
I believe every word you said. I receive all your promises. Oh my God. I won't be moved by what I see. I'll keep my eyes on what you show me. Bigger. Say bigger. Now if you're not believing for nothing, just chill. But if you're believing for a promise from God, lift your hands and receive it. Come on, receive it. I believe every word you said. And I receive